Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Level Up with Gal podcast show where you're able to show up as your true authentic self and learn how to level up in your life. I'm your host, Gal Carino. Today, we have a lovely guest joining us. Please welcome Jakara from Blooming Lotus Healing to the show. How are you doing and feeling today, Jakara?
I am doing good and I'm feeling fantastic.
Ah, love it. First person to answer both questions in one. I love that. So, Jakara, can you share a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I call myself a spiritual healing facilitator because I do a bunch of different things, right, to help people in their healing journey. I focus more on the spiritual side of things because I've always been very spiritual since I was a kid. Like that was a big thing for me. I was always drawn to the stars and astrology and mysticism and
Mm.
philosophy. That was my essence growing up. And of course, now that I am embodying the spiritual healer that I am, it makes so much sense, right? And so I basically work with a system that is called spiritual response therapy,
Mm.
and this system helps me connect to the Akashic records to clear programs at the subconscious level for people. So when people come to me, they typically have like an issue. They could be dealing with maybe an issue with a family member, or maybe some issues at work, or interpersonal relationships in in all forms, whether they're romantic or not. And Also, like maybe they're feeling like they're moving through some heavy experiences in their lives,
Mm.
and they want to try to figure out what's going on. And so what I do is that I connect to their Akashic records, to their higher self, and through that SRT
Mm.
process, and I find out these programs and I clear these. So it's really not me; it's really spirit. I'm just basically just creating the environment, the safe environment for the person to be able to heal. And
Mm.
so it's kind of like, imagine like getting Reiki in a way. It's
Mm.
energetic support, but it goes beyond that because we find out information of stuff
Mm.
and energies that were present in that are present now, because they have to be expressed now in order for you to actually want to do something about it, right? So,
Mhm.
but a lot of times they stem from past lives, and sometimes I do find things that are from this lifetime that are kind of expressed from, maybe when the person was in the womb. I know a lot of people know this, that when you're in the womb, you are receiving a lot of
Mhm.
information and you're hearing everything that's happening outside. And no, you're not only hearing, physically hearing these things, but you're also receiving the energies. And we're kind of like little
Mhm.
sponges when we're babies. So a lot of times that can happen too. Is that when I go in there, and I won't know until I open the records. But once I go in there and start asking questions, some programs will come up from when you were in the womb, and so then we
Mhm.
clear that. And typically, I combine that alongside with other things such as meditation. I'm a meditation teacher too, so I like to combine meditation. That's been a huge tool for me in my own healing journey. I particularly found Vipassana meditation being a very powerful way of really releasing a lot
Mhm.
of emotional baggage in my life, and as well as just listening to meditation music, such as, kind of doing like my own sound bath in a way.
Mm.
So I try to combine these things for people. So whatever I feel intuitively that I need to do, then
Mhm.
that's what I do. And yeah, I'm so grateful to be in this path, and to be of service to people. I cannot express enough how much gratitude I have that I'm in this path to do this.
Mm.
This is sacred work. It truly is.
Wow, so beautiful. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. And can you share with us how you got to where you are today? Were you always doing this, or what was Jakar doing before?
Yeah, actually, that's a good
Mhm.
question. So I wasn't always doing this.
Mhm.
So when I was younger, I actually was going to school to be a teacher, a preschool teacher.
Mm.
And then when I was in the process of going to school, once I graduated from high school, of course I was going to school to be a preschool teacher. I moved from Venezuela. So I was born and raised in Venezuela, in Caracas, and so I'm from South America. And so when I moved, I was around 20 years old,
Mhm.
and I came here, and it was really traumatic. I mean, a lot of people don't really talk about this, but
Yeah.
immigration is a very traumatic event for people. But
Mm-hmm.
because you have to survive, you're coming here, you're trying to make your life better, you're trying to, you're trying to do something with your life. We don't really look at these parts, right? We just kind of like shove it away somewhere. The emotional body just kind of gets like ignored for a while because we're just trying to survive and figure out our new lives, right? And
Yeah.
so that was really, really traumatic, and I felt very lost during that time, right? And so and prior to that, I had some traumatic events as well in my life. With my relationship with my mother was kind of complicated when I was growing up,
Mm.
and so I was kind of like in this essence of anger. Like my mom was a very angry person. She was divorced. They got divorced when I was 3 years old. My mom and my dad. My dad wasn't there. The whole spiel. And my
Mhm.
mom was working all the time. So I was kind of feeling a little lost when I came here because I was like, okay, well, I was anchoring myself into being a teacher because one of my I call her my second mom, my aunt.
Mhm.
She is a teacher too, and I connected so much to her. She was like a breath of life in my life, and so that I felt like I want to be there for children because I've suffered so much in my own journey growing up, and then I wanted to be there for children. But when I came here, that was so traumatic, that move, that I couldn't really figure out what to do in my life. I kind of went into this
Mm.
depressive space. So I was just kind of like working at a job that whatever, like I was going from job to job, just trying to survive and pay the bills. Kind of like in this go to work, go to the gym, then maybe go out with a friend or so, maybe go out for a drink or so, and then or go out to a party or whatever, and then go home and then get ready to go to work and then kind of like repeat that pattern, right? Like I was like in that
Yeah.
pattern, and I was miserable. And when
Mhm.
I look back, I'm like, wow, I was so miserable, and I didn't know how to get out of that, right? And it took me a long time. Like I want to say, it took me, several broken relationships, a divorce as well from my ex-husband. I went through some domestic violence,
Mm.
so that was kind of traumatic there, and also some issues with sexual harassment,
Mm.
and so there was a lot of I want to say there was a lot of trauma like in my life. Like it was like
Mm.
trauma after trauma after trauma, and it was a lot of it was from interpersonal relationships, and I was like, what is going on in my life? and
Mm.
and I didn't understand, right? Like at the time I was just suffering. I was in this victim mode, I was in the suffering mode. I was trying to numb the pain, and with food, or with distractions, or back then we didn't really have social media as more, so it would be like watching TV or being on the computer or pouring myself at work. And then I decided that I was going to go to school to be a photographer. And that was a really
Mm.
interesting pivot point for me because when I went to school for digital photography, I had an outlet for a lot of this, for
Mm.
all of this stuff that was kind of accumulating for me, right? Like all of this, um, all of this trauma that was carrying over. So I was able to really go into these dark places through the expression, through art, through the expression of
Mm.
art. And it was very healing for me, and I thought that was what I was going to do. So for a while there, I was like, oh, I'm going to pursue this career. I wanted to do fashion photography. I was into commercial photography. I was doing a lot of stuff. Actually, I was part of ASMP, which is a Association of Media Photographers of America, and
Mm.
I was working big jobs with assisting other photographers. I mean, I was doing amazing, right? I moved to New York City, trying to pursue, because that's what you do if you want to be in photography,
Mhm.
especially fashion. You want to
Yeah.
go either to LA or New York City, right? So I was like, I'm gonna go to New York because my dad was from New York. I was like, maybe I can just be in
Mhm.
that jam of New York
Yeah.
City or whatever. And so I did that for a while, and then I got married. That's when I got married, when I was in New York,
Mm.
and that's when things went downhill. That was when, with the whole domestic violence thing happened. And but now looking back, I want to say he was my greatest teacher.
Wow.
My ex-husband was my greatest teacher, and I'm gonna tell you in a minute why.
Yeah.
He was going through so much himself. He was
Mhm.
dealing with a lot of trauma himself. We kind of had this connection from when we were kids. That's how we knew each other, and
Mhm.
I thought that it was like meant to be, right? Like, whoa, we were meant to be together and all that, right? And so we knew each other since we were kids, so that we had like this really interesting connection. But because of that interesting connection that we had, that very intense connection, we also were very comfortable with each other, expressing our anger in a very unhealthy way.
Mm.
And it was kind of like a reflection, this reflection happening that was like back and forth, and it was so toxic. And but in that journey, now looking back, no, right? Of course, I wouldn't say that back then. Now looking back, I know that I wasn't really capable to hold space for him in the way that he needed, right? I didn't have the capacity because I myself was hurt and I was dealing with my own emotional pain, my own emotional baggage, and he wasn't really, and he needed someone that would hold space for him, and I wasn't that person.
Mm.
And that's what created that situation for me, right? And that's just my own experience, right? Everyone has something different. I understand with domestic violence, if you're someone that's going through this right now and you're listening to this, I just want to invite you to know that that you can always find a way out of the situation, and sometimes we need that separation. And I did. I had to. He almost killed me.
Wow.
And that was this is where everything started for me in my spiritual journey, of deepening my spiritual journey. um I had several things happen when I was a kid, but this one was really, really interesting because I was very close to death, and I
Wow.
had to surrender. At that moment, I surrendered to death. I remember doing a little prayer in my head saying, God, he was going to kill me tonight. And I felt it. I could see it in his eyes that death was imminent, like it was coming. It was there,
Mm.
like you could feel it energetically. And I was like, if this is the moment he's going to take my life, like, please let it be, like, guide him so that he can just, it doesn't hurt. Like, I don't want to suffer. That was my prayer. But like, quite literally, like, a couple seconds later, this man starts throwing up out of nowhere.
Wow.
And I was like, and then this little head, this little voice in my head starts, uh, like, guiding me. It was like my guidance, my inner guidance, right?
Mm.
My spirit guides, which I tended to ignore a lot. Okay, and
Mhm.
so that's why I would get in trouble,
Mhm.
because the spirit guides were always there. Now I recognize that now. So my spirit guide started telling me what to tell him to calm him down. So
Mm.
then I started just basically, saying certain things to try to calm him down. And from there, um, um, we ended up leaving and going back to where we were sleeping at the time. Actually, we were homeless. So
Oh.
actually, I have been homeless in Miami, which is horrible. And we were living in our car, and we were living in my car in a little Yaris, Toyota Yaris. Imagine
Mhm.
trying to sleep in a Toyota Yaris. It was really bad. And we were basically living on a parking lot for a church in
Mm.
Miami. And so I, for whatever reason, was able to convince them to go back to the church, to the parking lot. And so we went back there. And the next day, I went to the restroom. My face was all like, bruised up, and I was like, this is not love, right? Like, what is this, right?
Mm.
So I started questioning. I said, okay, well, it's time to leave. I have to leave because it's either I live or I die.
Right.
What do I want to, it was like
Mm.
life or death situation. So I was like, I'm gonna leave. So I went to the pastor and I told him, listen, like, I know that holy matrimony, whatever, but no, like, he's
Yeah.
not respecting me. I'm not respecting him. We're not respecting each other. There's nothing holy about this. So I want out. So I'm gonna leave. The car was mine. So
Mhm.
I was like, I'm gonna leave, and I don't know what he's gonna do, but I have to leave, right? So I
Mhm.
did. And so that started that healing journey for me. And so the reason I do what I do is because I know the hardships, right? I've been through a lot, right? I haven't been through war yet, and hopefully I don't have to go through war, but I've been through a lot,
Mm.
when it comes to trauma, right? So from immigration, from losing my father, when like them getting divorced, and my mom being, she was, pobrecita, poor thing, she was really struggling herself. She was emotionally, in a way, incapable of being there for me, so she was, taking out her anger on me. So it was all of this stuff, right, that really led me to the space of saying, okay, well, I've been through a lot of stuff, God. Like, what the heck? What is the purpose of all this?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
You start asking those questions.
Yes.
And when I left my ex-husband, I said, okay, well, I'm going to move. I ended up finding a job, one of those jobs again. It was a call center job, but it was paying the bills, and I kind of went into this like space of where I could like I'd have some stability, right? Like I went into that physical stability and financial stability so that I could go into healing. So that's what I did. I took time off from seeing anyone. I didn't want to have anything to do with anyone. I just wanted to figure out what the heck was going on inside and why did I get to the point where I did, right? Like this was so much in tarot, you would call it a tower moment, right? Like I was in the tower for like years, right? Like over and over again. And so many failed relationships. And I mean, I just wanted to be loved. I just wanted to be loved. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be seen. And I needed that so much, but I was looking for it externally. I was just seeking that love and that support and that validation outside of myself, right? And so with that said, you know, I have that realization once I move into my little apartment. I'm in this little studio apartment. I start connecting to meditation. I start listening to Deepak Chopra. I start, you know, listening to, you know, I knew that yoga would be something that would help me. So I would start, you know, listening to like, you know, anything that had to do with yogic, you know, traditions or anything that would help me, right? Like bring myself back into homeostasis, right? Like, because I was definitely so much out of balance and I needed so much to help myself. So I didn't have necessarily the income for me to be able to go to any retreats or anything like that. So everything was kind of self-taught for me, right?
Yeah.
In that process of going through this journey of rediscovering myself and really connecting to my own trauma, really accepting that, yeah, this sucks. Like I am, and allow myself to be the victim for a minute, right? Like, let me be the victim right now and give myself that space. Not I'm going to put that energy out there, but right now here within myself in my own apartment, let me be the victim and let me get my heart break. Let me allow my heart to break. Let me allow myself to emotionally emote everything, right? Emotionally, you know, connect to myself and figure out what the heck is going on. And the way I did that was through painting and meditation music. So I had a friend who gave me some warp records, vinyl records, and a friend gave me the idea. I was like, why don't you paint on them? I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So I started painting on the records. And so the really cool thing about the records is that the paint doesn't dry right away like it does on the canvas. So I was able to go into this really interesting mode of repetitive motion and meditation and connecting to the texture and the color and the softness of everything and really connect to myself. And I would have moments where I would be in meditation and memories would come up. And in those moments when the memories would come up, I would feel the emotional charge. So I would feel fear, or I would feel pain, or I would feel anger. And I would just breathe through that and continue painting. Breathe through that and just I did not know what I was doing at the time.
Yeah.
Right. I did not know that was meditation. Right. But that's what I was doing. I was just meditating. And so in that process, I released so much, Gal. Like when I tell you that I released so much stuff just by doing that, just by being present. I would do this 2-3 times a week. Right. So I was I was basically doing like art therapy for myself. It was like self art therapy. And then from there, I kind of moved on into connecting with plant medicine. And so I connected to Mother Mary, which I call cannabis. And I believe that these are all sacred plants. They should not be used for any sort of, they're not party. That's just my opinion, you know. They're not really for a party. They're sacred medicines that need to be respected as such. And when you do so, they deliver. They deliver healing for you. They really do, especially in the emotional and spiritual level. So when I started working with plant medicines, then I was able to tap a little deeper into certain parts of myself that I wasn't, because, you know, the ego doesn't, you know, the ego wants to protect you, which is normal. You know, we want to protect ourselves from painful experiences, and we don't want to have to go back and relive these things over and over again. But the idea is to go back, remove it, and release, right?
Yes.
So during that time, I was doing that. And alongside with that, I started connecting with the Akashic Records and I was starting to learn Reiki. I didn't really pursue Reiki per se. That wasn't for me. But I started to learn Reiki and I was practicing it on myself.
Mhm.
I was connecting with communities that were in the spiritual path. So I started doing a lot of soul searching and connecting with other people who were healing and listening to their stories. And I was doing a lot of that, right? I was
Mhm.
really connecting to anything that would be soothing for my heart, for my soul, for my, for my mental health, anything that would be helpful in some shape or form, right? And I would
Mhm.
try that. And I remember for a while there, I started to think I want to go to India and go to the
Mhm.
ashram, and I want to go meditate over there, and I want to just, I just want to do all this, like eat, pray,
Yeah.
love thing, right? Like I just want to do this, right? And so, in that process of, of experiencing all this, I then get introduced, fast forward to 2020, we have, that big thing happen. Actually, before that, 2019, I experienced Vipassana meditation for the first time, and my now husband,
Mhm.
um, we were dating at the time.
Mhm.
He's Indian, so I
Mhm.
tell him I want to go to India and I want to do
Mhm.
this and do that, and he was like, you can do that here, and I'm like, where? Because I did not know. And he's like,
Oh.
yeah, there's this Vipassana retreat center that you can go, and it's volunteer based, and you can pay what you
Mm.
can, and this is for everyone. I was like, are you serious? So we went. We did a 10-day
Mm.
retreat, 10 days in silence, 10 days in silence,
Wow.
no phone, no TV, no conversation, not seeing anyone.
Mhm.
It was basically 10 days of being with yourself, like fully with yourself. Imagine the amazing. So in the fourth day, the first 2 days are hard. The first 2 days, the third day, it's hard. The third and the fourth day, oh my gosh, there were so many realizations for me. There was so much release. I was crying, and some things I couldn't like. There were memories, but sometimes I was just crying. My it was almost like my emotional body just needed this moment of
Mm.
silence
Mhm.
so that it could do whatever it needed to do, so that it could feel safe to emote.
Mm.
And so sometimes I would have memories come up and I would cry, but sometimes I would just cry, and it was feeling painful, like it was emotionally
Wow.
painful, and I did not know where it was coming from, but I just knew that it was something that needed to be purged or released, right?
Mhm.
So that was really powerful, and that was what actually got me to study and to become a meditation teacher. So when I graduated from that, I then wanted to bring that into my workplace. I was working still in a call center, and call center work, I don't know if you've ever been in a call center, but call
Mhm.
center work is very stressful,
Mhm.
very, very stressful. The person that is taking the call has a lot of pressure from the person calling in and from
Mhm.
the managers to
Mhm.
keep the calls going, blah 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 blah. So anyway, so because I saw some of that stress and the anxiety, I started sharing meditation with
Mm.
my coworkers.
Mhm.
At the time, I was also listening to Jay Shetty, and I was
Mm.
really inspired by him too, because he was saying, just go do good, whatever that is, just
Yeah.
go do good. And that's what I did. I was inspired
Mhm.
so much by the encouragement that he would give us, through,
Mhm.
I remember also even joining his Genius group back in I don't even know, he still has it now, but
Yeah.
he had his Genius group. I was part of that. Like, I was like such a, I was like really trying to, again, take in as much as I could,
Mm.
so that I could figure out what the heck am I doing here, right? Because I knew that I wasn't meant to be in a call center forever, right?
Right,
I
right.
knew that that wasn't it, but I just did not know what, like, what is it?
Yeah.
What am I good at? Like, what's my skill? What is my skill set? So
Nice.
2020 hits, and I get the message from Spirit: you got to leave the job. You got to leave the job. I don't leave the job. Okay. Then the universe basically did everything for that I could leave
Mhm.
the job. So during that time, I get invited into a dream weaving community of women coming together, dream weaving, and that was one of the most healing experiences I've had, because being in a space of women where we tend to have this cattiness, there's a lot of
Mhm.
that going on, and it's promoted even on reality TV, all of this, like, very
Mhm.
unhealthy ways to connect with each other. This is not that.
Mm.
This was all about love, compassion, acceptance, non-judgment, connection, um, presence, witnessing. It was just so healing to be able to receive that. It was medicinal. We
Mm.
as women carry so much medicine that we can share with each
Mhm.
other when we operate from the heart. You know,
Yes.
so much medicine when we operate from the heart, and when we give the opportunity to each other to be ourselves and to respect each other for who we are.
Mm-hmm.
without necessarily trying to change the person, but just full
Mm-hmm.
acceptance. You
Yeah.
know, I don't know. There's something very healing about that for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that journey, I get introduced to SRT.
Mm.
And that's how because I remember talking to the sisters, right? I call them my sisters. And I
Yeah.
was like, I don't know what to do. And I don't know this and that. And I remember getting an SRT clearing by one of the sisters there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sharing with another person, another woman that was part of the group, telling her how I was like, oh, I really enjoyed this. And I was like, this is really beautiful. And
Mm-hmm.
but I'm pursuing right now Reiki. I'm not really liking Reiki so much, but maybe I can try something else. And then she found a teacher. And let me tell you something.
Mm.
This teacher that she found grew up in Venezuela,
What?
okay? And it's the first time that she's opening her classes online because of the pandemic. She
Mm.
otherwise I wouldn't have ever been able to even connect with this teacher. She's all the way in California and I'm here in Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I connected this teacher and Gal, when I tell you, there's people who have taken the classes many, many times
Mm-hmm.
and they still are trying to figure out SRT. Not me. I took the class and it was like it's almost like I've done this in the past in a past life or
Mm.
something. It was like this is my modality. Like this is what I'm meant to be
Mm.
doing. And so it was so transformational for me
Mhm.
that I just wanted to share it. And I was so excited to share it with others. So I started practicing on myself and I cleared
Mhm.
myself every day. And then I practiced on people, practice, practice, practice. You know, practice makes perfect, right? So
Mhm.
I practiced and practiced and practiced until I felt ready. So in 2021, I then decided to open my business in 2021,
Mhm. Wow.
like late 2021. And so I said, okay, I'm gonna do this. And I opened the Blooming Lotus Healing, and now I'm in for the ride, right? Like now I'm in this ride of expansion and
Mhm.
so much trust and learning how to trust myself even more and deepening
Mhm.
my connection with my guidance
Mhm.
and the loving energy that I get to share with my clients and the loving
Mhm.
energy that I get to share with other practitioners and other people who are in the community and building a
Mhm.
community and connection. It's just like I can't go back to any. This is it, right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's delicious energy, right?
Yeah.
And so, but it took me so much, right? So much,
Mhm.
and I didn't tell you all the details, but all I can tell you is that it was a lot of pain and suffering,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
That took me to this place.
Mhm.
But guess what? Then later on, I realized all of this stuff that I went through
Mhm.
allows me to hold space for people in a way because
Yeah.
I know what they've been through. I understand it in a
Yes.
very deep level, right?
Mhm.
In a level that you can only understand when you go through it.
Yep.
You know what I
100%.
mean? So
Yes.
it takes someone to go through it to really understand you at a very core level of what
Mhm.
it is. So for me to be able to share this gift of healing
Mhm.
to people and to understand that their lives are also spiritual and
Mhm.
that the spiritual aspect of our health is also
Mhm.
important. Absolutely physical, mental,
Yep.
emotional and spiritual tend to take the back burner.
Mhm.
And so that is my mission. My mission is to help
Mhm.
people recognize that your health is holistic,
Mhm.
right? And so kind of like, in yoga is not only the physical asanas.
Mhm.
They are also a practice, right? There's a practice that goes alongside with yoga, right?
Mhm.
That you can't really separate from the other things because it's holistic. It's about
Mhm.
addressing every single aspect of the human experience, right?
Mhm.
We cannot say that we're only emotional. No,
Yeah.
because we're also mental and physical. And we can't
Mhm.
say that we're only spiritual because we also, or we can't say we were only physical because then what happens with the emotion and the mental and the spiritual, right? So all of
Mhm.
these things have to be addressed.
Mhm.
Of course, from a place of compassion and love and acceptance, radical acceptance of ourselves.
Mhm.
First, ourselves. First, know thyself. Know
Mhm.
thyself. When you know thyself, when you
Mhm.
heal yourself, you are
Mhm.
helping this world become a better place.
Yes.
Period. There's no
Mhm.
other way around this. Know thyself, heal thyself. And when you do that, you will be doing so much goodness in the world, right? and remembering, we have to remember that, because it's so easy for us to be like, we always go that.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I do it too. We all do it.
Yeah.
But it's like, we gotta be like, oh, hold on a minute. What
Yes.
about this that I'm getting triggered about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is where inside of me do I need to pay attention? What part of me do I need to
Mm-hmm.
tend to right now?
Yeah.
Right? What part of me do I
Yep.
need to, maybe there's a little bit of like a sore spot for myself right now. Let me go in there and find out what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need to. That's healing, right?
Yes.
And doing whatever it takes to get you there. I'm not the only pathway of healing. Like the spiritual response and akashic clearings are one way, but there's so many medicines out there. I like
Mm-hmm.
to call them energy medicines, right? That you can take advantage of. But whatever that calls you, do it. Do it
Mm-hmm.
and receive. Allow yourself to receive and believe that you are this holistic being. So that is my message, right? Like, knowing, if I told you, because I can't tell you everything that I've been through again, but if I told
Mm-hmm.
you absolutely everything, you'll be like, okay, girl, like, you should be like so unhappy and like, hating the world. But I don't. I love people.
Mm-hmm.
I love the world. I have so
Yeah.
much hope and faith that we can do better.
Mm.
And even when my heart breaks, even recently, just recently, I was just talking to you about Mercury
Mhm.
retrograde. I
Yeah.
recently had a huge heartbreak.
Mhm.
Huge. Listen, I am not infallible, right? I'm
Mhm.
not invincible, right? I also have moments. I'm human,
Yes.
but I still have faith, Gal. I still
Mhm.
have faith in humanity. I still have faith that we can do better. I still have faith that we can heal. I still have faith that we have love inside of us, because I feel the love inside of me. And if I feel it inside of me, then I know that you have it inside of you. I
Mm.
know it, because
Yeah.
you're a reflection of me
Yes.
and I'm a reflection of you,
Yep.
period.
Yep.
So anyway, that's a long answer to
No, I love it. No, you've been through, well, first, just take a moment, give you big kudos for being here today and to share your story with a smile on your face. I mean, you've been through, let's keep it real, some shit, you
yeah,
know, like,
yeah.
and it help you find who you are. So listening to it, I was like getting closer, like, I want to hear more. Like, this is an amazing story. And if anything, I want to see your books one day. Like, if people need to read about you, because your story is so freaking inspiring. And
Thank you.
on their surface, nobody will ever know. Like,
Yeah.
dang, this girl been through some hard ass stuff. And especially when you bring up, coming over here from another country. My mom, that brings me stories from hearing from my mom and how hard it was and the trauma that came with it. So I resonate with that. Like, wow. So I resonate with a lot of your story, but oh my God, big, big kudos to you. You are amazing soul. I knew I liked you for a reason. Like, wow. So tell us a little bit, Jakar, like, what if someone's like, wow, how do I get into what she's doing, but I have no idea kind of what to do? Like, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, so you know what? I would say the first thing that I would invite, if you're starting off in your journey, and maybe because there's so much out there, right? There's so much that you can be, doing, right? Or
Mhm.
that you're being invited to do, because we have social media, we got so many things, and there's so many things that you can do, like breath work and
Yes.
meditation, and within meditation, so many types of meditation, and
Mhm.
there's so much. So what I want to invite you to do is first find something that calls your heart. So
Mhm.
maybe you're at this moment, you're feeling connected to meditation. Maybe you're thinking, oh my God, I want to do Vipassana. Do it. Go do it.
Mhm.
You can Google. There's plenty of locations around the country and here in the
Mhm.
U.S. They also have them all over the world. I know that they have it in India too, of course, because they originated in India. But if that calls you, and you gotta feel into your body, like if you
Mhm.
feel like that, like almost like butterflies, like, oh, that excitement or that inspiration, then that is your path, right? Because the thing for me is this, and I just did a video about this recently.
Mhm.
The path is not linear, right? The path
Mhm.
is not linear. The path is gonna have twists and turns, ups and downs,
Mhm.
and it's specific. It's divine in the
Mhm.
sense that the divinity of why it works that way is because it's working in its own spiral of you,
Mhm.
because you are a unique expression of spirit of this universe.
Mhm.
You are unique. So, like, for me to tell you, oh, this is the only way, right? That's
Mhm.
what has gotten us into trouble, right? Like, that what
Mhm.
has gotten us into dogma and very strict ways of being. And I feel that now we are transitioning out of this dogmatic expression of spirituality, and allowing ourselves to open up more into more of a exploration, and even inquiry and curiosity, and bringing all of these aspects into your life, where you allow yourself to be in that inquiry mode, in that essence. Then I feel you are able to find what aligns for you. Because what worked for me, maybe the past not work for me, but it might not work for you, because you might need to do a different type of meditation. Maybe for you, you need to do what I did with meta painting, right? Like painting and putting some meditation music. Maybe that's what you need. Or maybe you don't need meditation. Maybe you need breath work. Maybe breath work is exactly what you need. So my invitation to you, to you, Gao, and everyone that's listening to this, is that you want to make sure that you're connecting first to yourself, and connect with your own guidance first. And you're going to know when the guidance is there. It's always there. But you're going to recognize it when you feel that excitement coming through, period. And so, starting small as well. Don't try to do everything at once. Listen, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? And there might not even be a finish line, right? So allow yourself to practice grace with yourself and compassion. Listen, out of my own pain and my own anger, I've done things that I'm not proud of. I have nothing to hide. Ask me anything, I'll tell you, okay? But I'm not beating myself anymore over it, right? I'm not shaming myself anymore over it. So, moving through the shame, moving through those negative emotions, or that negative self-talk, pay attention to those little things, because they dampen your connection to your guidance, right? If you're constantly you're constantly berating yourself internally, then you're not going to be able to listen to the soft, gentle, loving guidance that wants to come through for you. Because spirit doesn't work in a way that's going to yell at you. It's going to be very, very, very subtle, in a very subtle way. So I would say, listen to podcasts like this, that inspire you, that keep you going. Listen to other people's stories, and see what inspires you, right? Maybe if you see, or maybe read a book, right? That inspires you. Start with little things like that, and then slowly start exploring, giving yourself permission to explore different healing modalities, different things. Maybe you are feeling a little fearful around certain things, because maybe you were taught or programmed to believe that, this is not good, this is evil, this is negative. Try to question yourself when this comes up. Is this programming, or is this me, right? Is this really my guidance, or is this programming? And try to ask those questions within yourself. Journaling is also a really powerful tool that you can. You don't need anything, just a piece of paper and a pen, right? Or even your phone. You can journal directly on your phone, right? And I would also recommend to read the Four Agreements. The Four Agreements changed my life. I read that book back in 2000, I want to say 2007, 2006. And that book completely changed my life. It's a very simple book, but very powerful. It's a book that you can, I go to it often. I even have right here my little, my Four Agreements. I have them written on right here in front of me, so that I can always remember, okay, am I operating from the heart now, or am I operating from the ego, right? So, doing these little things, I feel, will help you. Now, if you are ready, maybe you're like, Jakara, I've done all of that, but I'm ready to jump in, right?
Yeah.
If you're ready to jump in, then I would say, if you're being called to a healing modality, then, take those classes, go for it. So, for example, like if you wanted to learn SRT, for example, or learn more about SRT, that is under the Spiritual Response Association. So you can check that out and jump in, find a teacher, and there's online, now they do online classes, which I'm so grateful for. That was thanks to 2020. So that was, hey, silver lining, right?
Right.
So that you can do that, or maybe you want to learn Reiki. Maybe you want to learn mediumship or whatever, or maybe you want to learn coaching, or you want to learn psychology, you want to go back to school. Give yourself permission. It's never too late. It's never too late. Listen, my husband, I've been encouraging him. He went back to school. He's back to school. He's
Mm,
40 years old. And he
yeah.
was so scared of going back to school. I was like, please, it's never too late.
Yep.
Who is to tell why do we give ourselves like, oh well, I'm too old to learn? What? Why? So give
Yep.
yourself permission to learn new things. It's okay.
Mm,
Maybe it takes to go back to school and get a degree. Do it. Give yourself that permission. Give yourself that
mhm.
permission to explore and expand into what makes you happy,
Mm,
right?
yes, 100%. Yeah, it's like when listening, it's like, who says that you have to be this way? Or who says, like you said,
Yeah.
like you're too old? According to who? You know what I mean? So I'm like, universe, God, spirit guys are not telling me I'm too old. Like I'm gonna do what I want to do.
Right.
Yes, but I love that, you're not like, hey, do what I did. Like, figure out what works for you, you
Yes.
know? And all the people I've talked to, everyone's path is so different. Everyone's journey is so different. Our purpose may be similar. Like, we're trying to help people. We're trying to make this world a better place. But how we got here, it's like, how much time do you have, right? So wow, because it's like a whole whirlwind, right? And I
Yes.
love that you share your journey and really what you've been through and how you got here, because people get to see like, hey, you're smiling today, but it wasn't always smiling days.
No. No. No.
Yeah,
No. No. It wasn't always like this. Trust me. And I mean, I'm feeling joyful now, but I didn't feel like this,
yeah.
before, always feeling down and dense and don't get me wrong, like I still have, things that
Mhm.
happen in my life, like, there's moments that are difficult, but I'm able to bounce back a lot faster than I used to before.
Mm.
And
Yes,
that is
100%.
that is the key. That's when you know that you're in the right path, because you're able to bounce back, and not bounce back as like, oh well, I just put it away. No, bounce back in a way that you process it. You take the
Hmm.
tools that you learned, and then you process your emotions, and then allow yourself to be in the emotion and to let it be, so that you could don't
Hmm.
carry forward, and
Yeah.
then move on. Right?
Right, for sure, 100%, right? Because the world we live in, it's fast paced, right? I mean, social
Yeah.
media, right? Scroll for days quickly,
Yeah.
and it's like move on to the next thing. So I love that you said that, because like pump the brakes, ask yourself like, am I safe? How am I actually feeling right now? And I love when you brought up trigger, because if you're being triggered, you got to go back deep and heal, because that's coming up for a reason, and
Yeah.
that happens to me still, and I'm like, that just really pissed me off. I'm like, wait a minute, why? Why did it make me so mad? And I was telling my husband the other day, and I'm like, I met somebody recently and he really irked my nerves. And this does not happen often anymore. And I'm like, every time I see this guy, I'm like, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. I'm like, I do not react that way. So I finally like figured out why. And I told him, I'm like, you know what? He reminds me of an ex-boyfriend that was not very kind to me. And I just
Wow.
realized I haven't fully healed from that. And that was over 15 years ago.
Wow, that's incredible. That's
And
incredible.
I was like, well, there you have it, right? And I was like, no wonder. And then the next time I saw this guy, had nothing to actually do with him, just his tendencies reminded me of an ex-boyfriend. So I automatically was like, she like, oh no, stay away from me. Because you're actually a really nice person, which he doesn't need to know all this. But he actually helped me pump the brakes and like, hey, I need to work on that. And I told my husband, I realized we've been together for 15 years, but I realized that I was always been go forward kind of girl.
Yes.
So I never went back to like, oh, let me let that all go.
Yes.
So I'm like, so, anyone listening, like if you're going through something similar, or someone triggers you, a person, ask yourself, where is that coming from? Because we're trying to help you heal. But in the world we live in, we're like, quick, quick, move to the next
Yes.
thing. We ignore it. And then it comes back up. It's like I always like to say, it's like the universe slaps me in the face a couple times, and then I'm like, okay, I'm listening. you know,
Oh my God, that's so funny.
and I was like, oh, that's what you were trying to tell me 2 years ago.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I love that you're saying that, because it is. We do live in a very instant gratification time right now. So it is important that and that's another thing that I feel, bringing in the essence of the feminine energy into my spiritual practices, right?
Mm,
Bringing in the essence of the slowing down, of receiving, of being, of flowing, of being more present, right? Being more embodied. And I think that that's where, because we are so much in the mind, and social media tends to be more to me, it tends to be more mind and than embodied, right? It's more mind. It's like a mind. It kind of activates something in the brain, and I don't really know exactly. I know that there's some studies, but I know that it activates something that keeps you like wanting more, right? Like that's why it's like sometimes I'm like, I gotta stop, and I put it away.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if that happens to you. Like I try not to get caught up with it, but it still happens. I'm like, oh my god. But that instant gratification, right? So it's like going back and remembering we weren't really, we don't come from instant gratification, to be honest, right? Like our beginnings as humanity, like we've taken like steps, right? And so like going back into nature and slowing down, I think that's also a really great way to slow, like putting your phone away and maybe doing these little practices. Maybe you're having a hard time kind of like reconnecting with yourself and slowing down, maybe taking those little steps that will help you. And I learned that from Jay Shetty. It was funny because I remember like he mentioned something on his he was talking about how he started putting his phone like on his in his car because he didn't want to he didn't want to pick it up when he woke up in the morning or something. And so I was like, wow, that's extreme. But I understand why, because it's like, you want to be present, you want to be here in the now, in the moment. And so when you do that, then you're able to really allow that to heal. Like you've got to be present with yourself. There's no other way around it. Like if there's any presence that's important in our life, is presence with ourselves. Of course, presence with each other is important, but presence with ourselves is like absolutely necessary for us to heal.
100%. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about like, if someone signed up with, a session with you and they're like, Jakara, I have no idea what's happening, but I know I need some help. So can you tell a little bit about what happens with a session with you? If they needed some clearing and stuff like that.
That's a good question. So thank you for that question. So, okay. So the way I like to start my sessions is with a meditation. So there is a healing that happens also through the meditation for the client. And the other reason why I like to do that is because it connects them to their higher self. I feel like it helps them kind of bring their energy, their connection to their body into a more relaxed state so that they can really feel the energy and connect to what's happening in their bodies. Because a lot of times when the clearings happen, there's a lot of movement happening energetically that you can even feel at the physical level. So I like to do that. I like to start with a meditation. And then after that, then I open the records in the method that I mentioned, the SRT method. And then when I go, typically people will come in with an intention. We always want to set an intention because the Akashic records are huge. Like we don't just want to open it and be like, hey, we're like, we're gonna get lost, right? So we want to make sure that we're setting the intention. So whether it is healing a relationship between you and another person, or looking into the soul relationship, that's another thing that I do for people is to check their soul relationship. And that's kind of like where I'm kind of expressing more into. So what I love about SRT is that it allows me to really expand. So there's a lot of things that I've been receiving that are not done by everyone, that I didn't necessarily get taught, but I guess I've been, receiving and channeling from spirit. And so that's another thing that I check for people is their relationships, their interpersonal relationships. So what we do is that we find out, for example, what's your soul relationship in comparison to that person? Because we all have let's say a type of soul or like a type of expression of the soul relationship. Kind of like think about it like family, right? Like you have your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your cousins, like kind of like that, but in the spiritual realm, right? Like there's also sort of like that type of expression happening, not exactly like it, but kind of like that's the best way that I can express it or explain to you so that you can understand it. But there is some sort of that, and there's contracts, right, that happen between you and that person. And sometimes when that happens, believe it or not, one thing that I've noticed too, people say, oh, I've been having trouble finding, I don't know, like an office space, and I have a business and I don't know what to, and then when we check, there's some energies between that person and their old boss, for example, that needed to be cleared. And there were some energies from another lifetime that were related to poverty or disempowerment or whatever, like something in that sense. So we check those things, right? And your higher self is basically guiding me. So your higher self is basically connecting, and I'm receiving the information. And I'm just kind of like, okay, so, and then everyone's higher self has like almost like their own their own way that they want to like communicate with me, which is so interesting. Some higher selves are more talkative and more like they want to show me more. They show me like images and stuff. Some higher selves are very reserved and like, okay, I'm just gonna show you this. And that's it. Very private. So which is really
Interesting.
cool. Yeah, it's very interesting. Everyone's
Yeah.
higher self, and it's interesting how it works. But they still, you know, obviously they still come forth and show whatever needs to be shown so that it can be cleared. But they may not be as expansive on or
Mm.
extensive on what they share. But anyway, so we find out the programs, and while you're in the session with me, which is usually via Zoom, I share my screen. So as I'm typing, you can see everything,
Mm.
and you're feeling most likely some things moving around, you know, within yourself. And
Mm.
then we apply some healing at the end, and then we close the record. So depending, I don't really know what's going to come up until we open the record. So it's kind of like a
Mm.
Pandora's box. So like
Yeah.
I've had clients, for example, that say, you know, I want to do a 1 hour session, and we end up having to do like extra sessions later because
Mm.
it was more stuff that needed to be clear than you know than we expected, right? And
Yeah.
so so it's really interesting how it
Mm.
unfolds. And so one thing that I would recommend also for anyone that's looking to do any work that is Akashic record related or past life related, really open your heart to what's going to come through, because what is going to come
Mm.
through is not what you expect a lot of times. So I've
Mm.
had clients that are like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect this. Like I thought it was all this other stuff. Like, and it's not a lot. It's like something
Mm.
completely different, right? And so but when they look at the energies, they're like, but it makes sense, I've been feeling these energies in my life, right? And this has
Yes.
been expressing in my life. So but the storyline or whatever they were thinking was going to be, it's
Mhm.
not what they were thinking, right? So
Mm.
really coming in with an open heart and open mind.
Mhm.
And I think openness is the most important
Mm.
aspect that you can bring forward when you're coming into a session. And so yeah, and then after we do that, we close the records, and then you go on your way. There's integration as well, so there's a little
Mm.
bit of integration process. Typically I tell my clients that it can take a couple of months sometimes for all of this to integrate into your life, so really being
Mm.
present with that. I send usually the recording and the report, so that you can always go back if you're maybe meditating on something, or maybe you
Mm.
want to go back and maybe revisit something, because again, because it takes a little bit of time for the integration, you
Mhm.
might want to revisit something like, oh my god, this came up, and look at this, like now this is
Mm.
better, you know. You can see, like you can compare and see how things are improving in your life. So yeah, it's really interesting. It's a really
Mhm.
interesting process. And I bring my own flair. Like every
Mhm.
SRT practitioner is their own medicine. Like seriously, like
Mhm.
kid you not.
Mhm.
Like it's incredible. Like we all kind of like, not all Reiki practitioners are the same. Like everyone brings
Right.
their own. We're using the universal energy of love to heal
Mhm.
and clear, but there's still kind of like certain essences that we bring right into the table. and
Mhm.
and a lot of times, you know, I can feel things too. I can
Mhm.
feel like if there's a chakra that's feeling, like I can feel
Mm.
it in my body. I'm like, that doesn't feel right, and then I'll check. And so sometimes there might be things that show up that need to be cleared, that
Mm.
you didn't even intend to. And typically what I set at the intention, I always tell spirit, please show me what is known and unknown to the client.
Mm.
Please let me know what is known and
Mhm.
unknown to the client,
Mhm.
because what I want to make sure is that we're clearing everything that you need at that moment, not just what you think you
Ah.
need, but what you actually need at the moment, right? So sometimes there might be other intentions that spirit adds in the middle of the session
Mhm.
that are related to the actual program,
Mm.
that created some other issues for you at the subconscious level. So we also try
Wow.
to it kind of spreads out. Think about it, like kind of like it creates a secondary domino effect in a way. So
Yeah.
sometimes that can show up as well, which it's quite interesting how it works. So it's not necessarily always linear. Sometimes
Mhm.
there can be, you know, things. That's the reason why I have to make sure I keep everything on the report, because it can get complicated. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds amazing. Wow. And it's like, and for clients to be like, oh crap, I don't know it was that, and to be able to help them clear. So if someone's like, what is a Akasha record? What does that mean? How do I know how to understand that?
Yeah, so the Akashic records, so think about it this way. Everything that we do, you're always connected to your records, right? So like
Mhm.
you right now at this moment, I am right now at this moment connected to the records. So
Mhm.
this conversation is being recorded. not only
Mhm.
on Zoom, but
Mhm.
but also being recorded in the records, right? So
Mhm.
everything that we're interacting, but not
Mhm.
only the conversation per se, but also the energetic exchange. Because right
Mhm.
now, Gal, you and I, we're exchanging energy, right?
Mhm.
Whether
Yep.
we are seeing it or not, we're exchanging it, right?
Mhm.
So all of that energy exchange is being recorded.
Mhm.
Now, what happens is, obviously there's going to be the good, the bad, and I don't really like to say the good, the bad, but for our human construct, there's the
Mhm.
good and the bad interactions,
Yep.
right? So the bad interactions is what we call the karmic interactions, right? And
Mhm.
those karmic interactions create something called contracts. So, for
Mhm.
example, if let's say for whatever reason I do something that hurts you, whether
Mhm.
it is on purpose or not on purpose,
Mhm.
but it still creates an energetic charge that creates a karmic contract between you
Mhm.
and I. To where if it doesn't get resolved in that lifetime, it's not recorded in the records in that lifetime, then it gets taken over to the next lifetime, right?
Mm.
All of that is recorded. So imagine like a library of information
Wow.
that it's not like a physical library because it's etheric in nature,
Yeah.
but it's a physical library of information where all lifetimes from your soul are recorded, and
Wow.
every single interaction is recorded, whether it's good or bad or whatever. So like that's kind of like in a way, like I don't know if you ever like I know that that's something that's said in the Bible, like everything that you do, all your deeds are, you have to, when you die,
Mhm.
you have to like talk to the angels and like, see if you're gonna go
Mhm.
to hell or heaven. Like, okay, without getting too much into that,
Mhm.
that information that's in the Bible, that's kind of like explaining in a
Mhm.
way what it is that we have, like like the angel writing something down for us, like everything that we're doing, writing it down for us. But that's not necessarily what's happening. We don't have like necessarily an angel. It's just automatically. Imagine like the internet, everything, we're sending everything to a cloud, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm so grateful that we're in this journey of the internet and the cloud, because
Mhm.
this is so aligned with how spirit works as well. Like
Mhm.
the expression of the world, how you see it now, is quite literally the expression of spirit of the universe. Is so beautiful how we're seeing this in the physical. But think
Mhm.
about it that way. It's kind of like constantly sharing in the cloud. And
Yeah.
so, and then all I'm doing is just going into the cloud and I'm finding out that connecting to the cloud from this lifetime,
Mm.
and I tell spirit, okay, is this version, right, of the soul
Mhm.
right now on earth in this lifetime when they were born, this, because I usually get your date of birth, and then this
Mhm.
lifetime that when they were born, okay, what is affecting them right now
Mm.
from this or other lifetimes that is
Mm.
affecting their issue right now, that this creating this issue, this harmony in their life. And then that's when your higher self will be like, oh yeah, sure, we have this and that, and you know
Yeah. Wow, that's so
you know
cool.
yeah, it's so
Yeah.
cool. I love it so much.
Amazing. And I love hearing you talk about it because like you have this glow, you light up, and it really shows that it's your passion, what you're meant to do.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it's so
absolutely.
cool. And I was like, wow. I almost want to be like a little fly in the room. We were doing readings. Like, hey, I want to see what's happening. I don't understand.
It's really cool. I love it. And I think it's cool, right? Some people might feel like, "Oh, whatever," but for me it's like it's the coolest thing ever, and I love it.
Yeah.
And I love being able to do this for people, and I love being able to not only just connect to the records, but also do something that's going to help people shift
Yes.
their energy and their lives forward, right? Like that to me is, I think that's the what drives me, right,
Mhm.
into doing this, and the joy that you see. It's like knowing that it's going to bring some shift in your life, some positive shift in your life. It's like it's everything, like that. Just when I hear that, I'm like, yes, like that's everything. Like, yes,
Yes.
thank you, spirit, for this opportunity. I'm so grateful. Yeah.
Aw, yeah, and you can totally feel it. Like when you're talking about it, it's coming from the heart. I can feel it. Like I'm getting chills. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's so freaking amazing. So, like, what last piece of advice would you like to give the listeners? Anything that comes to mind that you want to share?
I love that. Well, you know what, I want to say learn how to connect to your heart.
Mm,
Don't be afraid of connecting to your heart. Don't be afraid of opening your heart.
mhm,
Don't be afraid of your heart breaking.
mm,
Don't be afraid, because when we learn to connect to our hearts and allow ourselves to open our hearts and allow ourselves to get our hearts broken, there's so much
mm,
so much expansion that comes from that.
Mm.
Operating from our heart space is the number one place that we want to be in. And how do you operate from your heart? By feeling into it every day. How do you
Mm.
feel in that moment every day? Every single morning when you wake up, do a little bit of a scan. Where is my
Mhm.
heart right now? Am I feeling a little
Mm.
tense? Am I feeling a little sad? Am I feeling a little hurt? Where am I right now in the scale of things? And allow yourself to connect to your heart every single day. Let that be your temperature for the day, right? Your
Mhm.
emotional temperature for the day, and allow it to be what it is, and allow it to express, because your heart is the pathway to healing, is the pathway to spirit, is the pathway to your emotional and your spiritual health, quite
Mm.
literally.
Yeah, I love that. So, Jakar, tell everyone how they can get in touch with you and find you on your social media accounts and everything.
Yeah, so you can find me on social media. I'm already following Gal, so you can find me
Mhm.
there. So on Instagram, the Bloomy Lotus Healing, and also my website, thebloomylotushealing.com. And the best way to connect with me is through my website. You can send me a message there. Sometimes Instagram, I don't really check my DMs as often. So I check my emails more. So if you're really like wanting to connect, or maybe have a question about what we spoke about today,
Mhm.
or maybe have questions about anything really in regards to what I do, or maybe you want to do it yourself, then definitely do reach out to me through my website. That's the best way,
Mm.
thebloomylotushealing.com. And yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube as well. So I have a YouTube channel. You can go there, and I go live. I don't know if you've been into any of my lives on Thursdays, but we
Mhm.
our lives on Thursdays are good. I bring in practitioners, and we talk about different things, and different subject matters. So like if you want to learn more, maybe you felt
Mhm.
inspired to learn more about your exploring your spirituality, or learning more modalities. Like
Mhm.
that's the purpose of those that I'm doing. So it's really just to serve. It's there to
Mhm.
serve. So
Yes, awesome. Don't worry, everyone. I'll make it easy. I'll put the links so you can click it because I know everyone is. If it's too hard, they're not doing it. So I'll put it there, and definitely follow Jakara and also her YouTube because your Thursdays are amazing. Like I have been on there and I try to catch them and then I try to watch the replay if I miss them. So thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for coming on, sharing your journey, your knowledge, your insights, your wonderful energy. Like I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you too. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful, and hopefully, you'll come over to my channel and
Yes,
help too over there.
absolutely. Thank you.